Will there be an end to this inglorious offseason? Are we stuck in the quagmire of a world sporting event in which the United States is a considerable underdog? The business of the National Football League rolls on. The Washington team might need a new name. We debate whether the last decent Titans quarterback deserves a greater honor. One of the worst picks in Titans history hangs him up. Chris Johnson finds out there are no I's in individual workout. And dynasty leagues are fun if the startup draft would ever blasting end. Sharona, how are you tonight?
Hi, Zach. I am happy. Today's Wednesday, right? Happy Hump Day.
Yeah.
Exactly. See, I'm confused because, you've been so kind to be moving this show to Thursday for me so that I can go to Dave & Buster's, and I have not yet made it, so I'm still confused on which day we're doing the show.
I know, it's tough. I got some weird conflict tomorrow, so I said, hey, let's do it tonight. Let's do it.
And we're both drinking wine, so salud.
Yeah, I know. Later I might, talk about my selections in the Two Mugs beer draft, but we'll see. That's if time permits, because this first subject could take the entire hour and then some. You wrote an article talking about the one, the only, the Steve McNair, and how he should be a Hall of Famer. So tell us, make your case for Steve McNair.
It's a tough case. If you read the article, you know that I was clear about that. It is not by any means a foregone deal. In fact, it's going to be very difficult for Steve McNair to make it. And he may ultimately only make it based on the senior candidate vote, which you would have to wait, I think, 20 years is the criteria for that. For the regular vote, it's 5 years after retirement. He was up last year, didn't make it out of the first round voting. The numbers are, if but that 1 yard tying the game in a score, if the Titans had won that Super Bowl, and if Steve McNair had been named MVP, which he would have been if the Titans had won, it's a much easier case to make. But they did not, and he only made one. There's not too many quarterbacks in the Hall who only made one Super Bowl and he won it, and that's Broadway Joe, and his numbers aren't nearly as good as Steve McNair's, but he's Broadway Joe, and he won the Super Bowl and was the Super Bowl MVP, even though he had rather lackluster stats. So very difficult. But when you consider what Steve McNair was able to do, what he did, he was a guy who went to a historically black college, was recruited, could have gone and played at Florida, had an offer for Florida. He was a two-way player in high school. He was recruited by Florida to play running back, and probably could have played defensive back as well at Florida, but he wanted to play quarterback, and so he chose. And at that time, black quarterbacks weren't being very heavily recruited, weren't even at all. They weren't being given these opportunities to play quarterback like they are now. And so he went to Alcorn State and put up glorious numbers. Still owns many of the records in FBS, what is now FBS, and so was a Heisman candidate, and was the third in voting behind two guys who are largely forgettable. You mention their names and people are like, who? So he really probably should have won that award, but he did not, and was the highest, to date, one of the highest drafted black quarterback out of a historically black college, and was really groundbreaking in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think those running backs, it was Rashawn Salam and Kijana Carter, and I have a feeling that both those guys combined didn't have as many rushing yards as Steve McNair had as a pro.
Right.
So there. Yeah, it was. I mean, it wasn't even that big of a media time. I remember he led Alcorn State to a playoff game, and that actually was on ESPN because he was so
Yeah,
good. He had like
he was.
six
He was.
thousand passing yards his senior year, I think.
Yes, he did. He
And they
was
only
in
played
like
12 games.
and
They played
like
11
four,
games back then.
and I forget how many rushing in like a bunch of rushing yards, almost as many rushing yards. Too. I mean, it was the stats. They're all in the article. The stats are amazing. He made the major media outlets pay attention to smaller schools, not just black colleges, but in reality black colleges too, which was very groundbreaking at the time. And what you see now, all the coverage that you see now, it all began with Steve McNair. You really cannot underscore what he brought to smaller colleges and to historically black colleges as well. And he was really the guy, the prototype guy. He had really an inaccurate perception by some that he was a running quarterback. No, I mean he got the nickname Air McNair for a reason. I mean the guy, like you said, put up amazing passing stats in college, but he could run too and was not shy about it. And so, but he was really the prototype for what you see now with Colin Kaepernick and your Russell Wilsons, your Cam Newtons, the guy who looked to throw, always looked to throw, but could take off and make plays with his legs and extend plays and drives. And so, yeah, he was amazing. Tragically killed. The anniversary of his death is coming up. So, yeah.
Yeah, July 4th, 2009. I remember because I was working at Bleacher Report. It was July 4th, 2012. It was the third anniversary, and I decided on the fly. This was back when Bleacher Report let you pretty much post whatever you wanted, whenever you wanted. And I posted a quick, like, 300-word thing about his death, and it actually was the most read article I'd ever written for them. And it was a little bit about his impact on and off the field. He kind of came off, as like this country boy, kind of like, I have a cousin who has that kind of accent, and he's very, I don't know, kind of everybody's his friend. I think he wanted to make an impact off the field. And I mean, he's just a truck of a guy. I mean, 6'2", 235. I mean, he's just hard to bring down. And
big guy.
He had tons of injuries. I remember a game against the Giants where he didn't even practice all week, and he comes in and leads them to a comeback, and he ran in a two-point conversion to tie, and then they ended up winning the game in overtime.
He got knocked out of a game. I think that he cracked a rib or something, and Neil O'Donnell went in, and he got hurt. I forget which game this was. I'll have to go back and look it up.
And it was against the Steelers, yeah.
Steve went back in. Air McNair went back in and won that game.
Yeah, and I mean, another part that's a shame. I mean, you're talking about comparing him to other quarterbacks. I was thinking another Mac from that time, Donovan McNabb.
Yeah.
And how Donovan McNabb was a running quarterback, and they almost never gave him a receiver except when he had T.O. for like 2 years. And Steve McNair never had that receiver. I mean, it makes us sad a little bit that Matt Waldman posted that if they had drafted Randy Moss, Steve McNair might have already been in the Hall of Fame.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I absolutely.
But that wasn't the offense that Jeff Fisher won. He wanted to run.
Yeah,
run,
and
run
it wasn't right. I mean, and it wasn't just that. And I thought tried to make that point clear. And it wasn't just Jeff Fisher. Jeff Fisher is the one who hired Les Steckel. Les Steckel very much ran the kind of offense that Jeff Fisher, wanted to run. They did not want to turn McNair loose. It was all about Eddie. They refused to acknowledge that they rode Eddie hard and refused to acknowledge that his better days were behind him. It was really only when, as I recall, Steve's best years, his MVP year and the year before that, they were under Mike Heimerdinger. May he rest in peace.
Yeah, Mike Heimerdinger definitely opened up the offense. I go back and forth when I do my Know Your Enemy. My Colts guy had been Nate Dunleavy, who used to write for Bleacher
Yeah,
Report.
yeah. I like
And
Nate. Nate's a great
he
follow.
just groused and groused about how Peyton should not have split that MVP with Steve McNair, and I was like, well, if Steve McNair hadn't been hurt that year and missed like a game, I think he would have won it by
He
himself.
should have won it. He could have very well won it straight out. Probably should have won it straight out.
It was a tough year because I think they had the same record as the Colts. They ended up being
The
a
Colts
wild
beat
card
them.
team, and they had to go to New England, and it was that crazy balloon fourth down ball he threw to Drew Bennett, who happened to be wide open and dropped it, and like the third coldest game in NFL history, and it really took just a crazy effort by the Patriots to beat them, and that's the thing about the Titans in that late 90s, early 2000s. They had about 4 or 5 teams that really had 1 or 2 bounces from probably winning a Super Bowl. And unfortunately,
so close.
It feels like that's like Steve McNair's career. It was like so close to this great career, but honestly, I think he's, they should. I don't know if they're going to retire numbers. I don't think they do that anymore, but I think they put him in the Ring of Honor finally.
He's in the Ring of Honor, I'm pretty sure.
Ring of Honor.
Yeah, and think about this. Imagine if the Titans had not been a vagabond team for the first 2 years. Once he finally gets out underneath Chris Chandler's coat strings, and Chris Chandler, I didn't put this in there. Didn't put this in there. Chris Chandler was notorious for ignoring Steve McNair, not wanting to help him, not wanting to mentor him. And Steve finally gets out from underneath poor Chris Chandler, and the team, Bud Adams uproots the team, and here they go, traipsing all over Tennessee. And I've been thinking about going back and supplementing that part of the article, but I don't know that the casual fan understands that the Titans didn't have a headquarters. They were in mobile trailers. I mean, they did have makeshift headquarters down in Metro Center, but they didn't have much to speak of, and they really were operating out of trailers and whatnot. And that the team broke even, went 8-8 those 2 seasons, was pretty amazing. And what Steve did during those 2 years was pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's definitely not what you see from quarterbacks, because he was a 4-year college starter, but he was coming from a really low level, and he didn't become a full-time starter until his 3rd year.
Yeah.
And that's the Memphis year, and then the 4th year was the in Vanderbilt Stadium year, and then finally 99, which is kind of funny because that's the year the team went 14-2, and he actually got hurt, and Neil O'Donnell started 5 games. But it is kind of crazy, a guy named McNair, and he had actually 3 years in his career with 20-plus touchdowns. So it was not a throw the ball over the field. I don't even think he had 5 or 6 3,000-yard seasons, but part of that was due to injury. But
yeah, and everybody knows about. I didn't really go into detail about the injury, just to mention. Everybody knows that that he had those injuries. I think that he only played maybe 1 or 2 seasons where he played mostly every game, something like that. So yeah, I mean, if he hadn't been injured and all of that, he might have the numbers to do. But I don't know. We're so to me, if you look at the guys that I mentioned. The Joe Namath analogy to me is the closest one and the best one. The Jets win that Super Bowl, not really because they won it because the Colts quarterback threw like a gazillion interceptions, and their defense was good, and Joe Namath managed the game to victory. I think they scored like 16 points, something like that. The Colts scored 7.
They had 1 touchdown. The team had 1 touchdown. It was a running touchdown. He didn't even get a touchdown. Yeah, he probably threw for like 160 yards in that game. Probably.
That was the game where the Colts pulled their starting quarterback, and As I recall, wasn't Johnny Unitas? Didn't he come in and he's the one who threw that touchdown?
Yeah, he came. He was like the long injured backup. It's kind of wild that that game, the coach of the Baltimore team was Don Shula, and then after that happened, he ended up going to Miami, and it was good times.
So,
Before my time, sadly, as a before
oh yeah,
1999
mine too.
Dolphins fan.
I see what
Oh, the glory days of them winning the Super Bowl was back when I wasn't really alive. But other than that, it was great. But yeah, when it was a good career, played through. It's kind of what you want out of your quarterback. I mean, forget about getting accolades or anything. You just had that leader that you knew the team was behind him. They were following him.
Yeah.
Didn't he famously take a nap before every game?
He took a nap before every
Took
game.
a nap.
Yes, that was his routine, was to take a nap before every game. And the other thing that I think bears mention, I've actually been thinking about doing a follow-up article that talks about the case against, because I'm well aware of how difficult it's going to be. But this is the other thing that I think, this is why I think that he should get, if he gets in, I think this is why he should get in, and that is because he made it truly acceptable to build your team around a black franchise quarterback. There were other guys. I mean, the Oilers had Warren Moon, but they traded him away. Well, they ended up trading McNair, but that was mostly due to money.
The
But
pain.
I mean, he really did make it okay to acknowledge that a black quarterback could be your franchise guy. You could draft him high and build your team around him, and I think he broke that barrier.
Yeah, it's something else that the Titans, the franchise, their two top quarterbacks of all time are Warren Moon, who was, I think, an All-American quarterback and had to go to the CFL. Before the NFL picked him up, and then he had crazy numbers when the Oilers basically threw the ball every down, and then they ended up getting
the Love You Blue era. What did they call it? The run and gun, run and shoot.
Yeah, I don't know if they didn't have a fullback. I don't know if they had a tight end, and another kind of cursed. I was thinking of doing a series on other cursed franchises like the Titans, because the Oilers had their era. They had the late 70s with the Steelers where they couldn't quite break through. They had that 7-year stretch in the 90s where they literally made the playoffs 7 years in a row and they never made the NFC Championship game.
Yeah.
And the only time they lost was to another team that was cursed during that era,
the Bills.
City Chiefs.
Oh, the Chiefs. So, I thought you were talking about that one. Bills.
The last Chiefs playoff win is so long ago that they beat the Oilers, and it was Joe Montana. And then they got blasted by the Bills. I was thinking of teams like the Chargers, but
the Bills have had that curse too. And that's another team.
Yeah, their last playoff game, Music City Miracle. Sorry about that. Sorry, Brian.
No, sorry, not sorry.
You don't like Watch X so much. But that's the thing. See, I'm going to make a very painful transition, but there's a quarterback. There's a quarterback the Titans drafted in the same number 3 spot that when I looked at Steve McNair's numbers, I'm like, if this guy doesn't top what Steve McNair did, that's just going to be a big disappointment. And that guy was Vince Young, who recently announced that he retired. Apparently he took a job with Texas. I don't know if he's going to be the guy who's going to be opening the suitcase of cash for the recruits or what exactly he's going to be doing.
He's offered an ambassadorial. I don't know how. I'm probably totally butchering that. He's an ambassador to Texas.
Ah.
An ambassadorship. He's royalty.
I mean,
he really is royalty at the University of Texas, though, right?
Yeah,
and he should be.
It was crazy. I mean, you watch, if they ever show it, you have to watch the USC-Texas game because he had 200 passing yards and 200 running yards, and he basically threw 3-yard passes to his tight end all day. And it was that 4th down play where you he's going to run, and he looked at one guy, and he ran, and he scored that touchdown. and there was a
Yeah.
lot of excitement. And it was a weird career, too, because in 2006, he had all those crazy comebacks when they finally had to start him because of the McNair fiasco and the leave Billy Volek like a lost bag in San Diego fiasco, and signing Kerry Collins 1 week before the season and thinking he's going to know the playbook. And I don't even know if he got hurt or they just said, screw it, let's start Vince Young. And then he
It
made all
was
these
just so bad.
crazy
I
comebacks.
mean, my God, those first 5 games were
They were bad.
so bad. I mean, oh God.
We were kind of spoiled because they had a great run, like a 6-year run, 99 to like 2005, and then then the bottom just fell out.
2004.
I don't think 2005 was good. 2003 playoffs. 2004.
It started in 2000. It started in 2004. I think they won 4, maybe 5 games. All the injuries hit, and you knew the upcoming. They'd already started the salary cap purge. You knew that there were going to be more guys, and sure enough, more guys got released.
Yeah, it was Samari Roll,
Kevin
Derek
Carter,
Mason, and Steve McNair all go to the Ravens, and the Ravens actually had a good year, and they lost to playoff choke artist Peyton Manning, who, by the way, had a really horrible playoffs that year. He threw like 7 interceptions, but the team kept winning. It was one of the weirdest, flukiest kind of playoff things ever. But yeah, the Vince Young. 2006. It was the overtime run against the Texans. He was a Texans guy. Some people wanted him to take him. He had that like last play of the first half, like 50-yard touchdown run against the Bills, and they won the comeback. And they ended up going 8-8. And I just remember that last game against the Patriots where they had to win, and a bunch of other crap had to happen for them to make the playoffs. And Belichick's like, screw you guys. I don't care if we've clinched our playoff spot.
Yeah, I remember that too.
And then that cheating safety is theirs. I can't remember his name. He's on ESPN now. Got injured, and he got pissed. And I just remember Vince Young throwing an interception and running a guy down and freaking forearming him to tackle him. And everybody was like, whoa, whoa. But then he didn't quite have it that day.
The Titans wide receiver, Bobby, I never can remember his last name, made a block. I think he's the one. He made the block on Harrison. And after that game, they whined for like days about how dirty the Titans were, which was quite interesting considering they got caught cheating later.
Yeah, it was a sad time because it really did seem like Vince Young was close to making it. I don't think he and Jeff Fisher got along. 2007, I remember keeping him in my fantasy league. Oh, what a disaster that was. And the team won despite him, and they made the playoffs, and they had nothing on offense at all. And then 2008 happened, and of course they were better because he got hurt.
That was definitely the spawn of the all he does is win thing, that mantra. All he does is win, just look at Vince Young's win-loss record. But he did have a lot of success for the Titans until
he made the Pro Bowl twice.
Until Game 1 of 2008, and a scene that is etched in my memory that I will never, ever forget. It unfolded right in front of me, and I was like, it was the most amazing thing I've ever seen.
So he gets hurt. That's the opener against the Jaguars. And he got hurt. And I think they wanted him to come back in, and he wouldn't.
He got booed. He
was pretty bad because he was not good in 2007. He had a 9-17 touchdown interception ratio.
Yeah.
So in that opener, he was bad, and then they put Kerry Collins in, and he threw like a 3-yard slant that I don't remember whatever crappy tight end we had, And
it was Bo Scaife, I believe. I'm pretty
sure. They ended up coming back to win.
Aaron Kinney.
Yeah, Bo Scaife, Aaron Kinney. It's hard to tell those two apart. Well, maybe not. Ironically, wasn't Bo Scaife the guy who caught like 20 passes from Vince Young? Because he was a
Texas guy. Mm-hmm. He was a Texas guy. Yeah, they wanted Vince to go back in. Vince was like, he was like, and Kerry was like, he wasn't right there, but he was over there, and Kerry didn't have his helmet on. He didn't even know where his helmet was. I don't even think he grabbed a helmet. I don't even think he put his own helmet on. He just grabbed somebody's helmet and started warming up. And fortunately, there was a time. I think there was a TV timeout, and so the Titans had a little bit of extra time. And they got Kerry on the field, and the rest was, and of course, that was the night that the cops were out looking for Vince everywhere. It was all over 911, all over the scanners and stuff. Vince Young's gone AWOL with a gun in his truck.
Yeah, he didn't quite have the mental side, and now it reminds me that Kerry Collins, the Titans signed him as like the most expensive backup in the league, and then after 2008 they had to sign him to extension, so they had him and BY signed to a large amount of money.
It was a pretty good amount of cash
for a few years because of that. The Kerry Collins, Vince Young days, I think Titans fans, we're on our in our retirement homes talking about that. That's not going to be the time we're going to be like, well, those were the good days. Well, I hope they're not.
Well, the funny thing about that off season, Vince is coming off a rather crappy year, although they did go, I believe, didn't they go 9-7 that year?
They made the playoffs in
Anyway,
I think they were 10-6 because that was the year like the Browns went 10-6, but because the Colts kind of backed in, they let the Titans win the last game. Everybody was all ticked off, but
oh yeah, okay,
it didn't matter.
Anyway, whatever. He was coming off a bad season, really needed to devote himself to his craft. And there were all these fluff stories coming out. Vince Young is going to be, he's committed, he's going to be in here working hard during the off season. Jeff Fisher comes out and does this presser. Yeah, Vince is here. Vince is here. He's working hard. Here. Yeah, well, no, I'm totally serious.
Taking a nap at the jacuzzi.
Let me finish. It's a good story, Zach. Vince is here. He's working hard. He's going to be working with the receivers. And then, like the next day, it was reported that Vince had re-enrolled in college and was down in Texas in college. It was to watch the Titans scramble around and try to deal with that situation was kind of funny. I mean, it's not funny. At the time, I was like, "Oh, good Lord, what's going on?" But now we can look back and sort of laugh about it because it was. When that happened, I was like, "Oh, good God, we're in trouble." And as it turned out, we were in trouble.
I think I made the joke in 2009, like midway through because they were 0-6 in 2009, and Jeff Fisher didn't want him to play, but then they put him in, and I was like, Vince Young is going to make the Pro Bowl, and I only said that because I knew that like 12 quarterbacks always decided not to play in the Pro Bowl, and then they ended up going to the Pro Bowl. And the team finished strong, and it was all that read option stuff. And that's when Chris Johnson actually was like, as good as he thinks he is.
Yeah, they were trying to get Chris Johnson to... Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Basically, the last 4 games were, we're giving him the ball like 30 times a game, and we don't care about the long-term impacts. There's another good but not great example of a player. But, Vince Young, at the end of his career, like once the Titans got rid of him, which was that 2011 offseason, is strange because they were going into the lockout, and then it was like Vince Young or Jeff Fisher. We're gonna get rid of one of them, and they got rid of Vince Young, and then like 2 weeks later, Jeff Fisher's like, I'm out of here. I quit.
I know.
I'm gonna take a year off, and I really think because backup quarterback is such a weak position in the NFL, I think Vince Young could have been a backup quarterback for like 5 years. But he just couldn't do it. Like he was with the Eagles and he played, and then it was like the Bills one year, and then last year the Packers, and they literally had nobody at backup quarterback, and they're like, no.
Yeah.
Then the Browns signed him this offseason, and it was him and Tyler Thigpen.
I mean,
famous like 7th round pick at Coastal Carolina, and guess who stayed on the roster? Tyler Thigpen.
Yeah, it's
His son got
crazy.
cut after like 2 weeks. It was
Well, he
all.
goes to the Eagles. He starts that dream team stuff, and I don't think the Eagle. I mean, he was just a guy that just didn't get it. He was just a guy that didn't get it.
No, and I guess creditors might be getting it if he's, at Texas. Maybe, he can give him the payment plan or
I
something.
hope that he does well, and he's a god down in Texas, and I think that's a good play. Houston, that area is a good spot for him. I really, and he's gotten married now, and hopefully, although the comments that he made when he retired were quite curious, but I hope
He
he
thought he
does
could still
well.
play. I mean, yeah, when you retire, you say you're retiring, and it's actually like 3 calendar years after the last time you actually played in the NFL. I think the NFL is aware that you have retired.
Mike Griffin came out and said he doesn't believe him, that he doesn't think he's retired.
Well, I'm sure if an NFL team gave him a chance tomorrow, he'd be like, "I'm in." But I don't see it happening. You get a lot of chance, like when you're a first round pick, like he was, and he was Heisman runner up, I guess, and he didn't actually win. You get a lot of chances, but then after a while, you're like, okay, we're finished with you. Your chances, you have unchanced yourself.
Yeah, but if the talent had been there, if teams thought that he could help them win football games, he'd still be in the league.
Alas, he can't. And gosh, all this Titans old quarterback talk, isn't it exciting? Oh,
I
yeah.
know, right? 30 whole minutes of it.
We can transition into the Titans position of the week. Tight end. So last year, the Titans.
Before we get there, Zach, let's tip our glass to your guy. Show your bobblehead.
Which one?
The greatest tight end in Titans history.
White check.
Frankie.
It was lateral, Brian. It was a lateral. Sorry.
Frankie.
I have to say it every time.
This line's for you.
They did the sports thing. He has a left anyway. Yeah. So the Titans last year signed 2 free agents that made me go, WTF. They signed Bernard Crushboy Pollard in the secondary, famous for tearing Patriots ACLs. And on the offensive side, they signed a backup tight end out of the 49ers, Delaney Walker, whose career high in 7 NFL seasons was 29 catches, 331 yards, and 3 touchdowns. I was like, what on earth are they doing with this guy? But it actually worked out. He had set 60 catches last year, 6 touchdowns, was probably on all of Sharona's fantasy teams, and he was a leader in the locker room that the Titans needed. They actually imported like this veteran leadership on both sides of the ball, and they got it.
This is before Zach knew me. Sharona begged, literally got on her knees and pleaded for the Titans to pick Delaney Walker up in free agency last offseason. And I was ecstatic when they did, and Zach, you may or may not be right. I will confirm that Delaney Walker was on at least one of Sharona's fantasy teams last year, and he's on my first fantasy team this year.
No, that's right. We'll be talking about that shortly. What's crazy about Delaney Walker is I looked him up on the Pro Football Reference page, and his first 6 years in the league, here's the positions that they list him at. Wide receiver, tight end, wide receiver, running back, tight end, fullback, tight end. Like, he didn't even really have a position with the 49ers. But they did have that Vernon Davis guy, and he's pretty good. So
yeah.
What Delaney Walker offers that one Jared Cook doesn't is that he actually blocks. He can play both ways. He can catch the ball in the seam. He had 37 catches in the last 8 games last year. So when you're thinking tight end in your fantasy leagues, a little bit later, he's a guy you can get, maybe even in a dynasty league, if you know what I'm saying. So I don't think I would call this a weakness.
Yeah, it's kind of curious to me to look at his ADP right now and to look at projections and whatnot. Delaney Walker was a top 5 tight end last year. Finished as a top 5, or depending on scoring and whatnot. Finished top 5 or top 6 among tight ends last year, and still is not, to me, getting enough credit. And some of that has to do, I think, with a little bit with the uncertainty of the quarterback position for the Tennessee Titans.
What do you mean? I think the Titans are like all set at quarterback. Come on.
What? Jake Locker's the guy. Go Jake. Go Jake.
We got Zach Whataburger.
Team Jake.
You know, though, if I'll be allowed, a little sidetrack, there's been a strange amount of Jake Locker love in, like, fantasy circles. Like, not like, oh, he's going to be a top 5 quarterback, but, oh, get him as your second quarterback and he could be good. And it's like, wait, people are saying good things about Jake Locker. Confused.
I will say, but I will say this. Zach told me I would be dumb if I did that.
You asking me for fantasy advice. That's the only dumb part. Everything else is spot on.
Sorry, Zach.
So other than Delaney Walker, the Titans have Craig Stevens, the highest paid backup tight end in the NFL, although he did take a pay cut.
He reduced his salary.
He's been known as a great blocking guy, and I remember making a joke on Twitter once about him being a slow white dude, but apparently he had a really fast 40 time. And he did catch that one long pass against the Browns like 4 years ago. Well, they beat the Browns, but wait, they're the Browns. So he's there, and then we have our forever developing third tight end, Taylor Thompson, who was a tight end in high school, a defensive end at SMU, which didn't have the tight end position, and then he transitioned during the All-Star games, and the Titans traded up to get him. And other than making a couple really good blocks on special teams, he's really done not much. But who knows? Maybe he's the third-year breakout. The Titans' offensive coordinator was the tight ends coach for the San Diego Chargers, and they're pretty good at tight end. So maybe he's a guy. I have had him on my dynasty roster since he's been a rookie, and I'm thinking that might be a spot that'll be open pretty soon, but what the heck,
His
right?
ADP is undrafted.
Yeah, you don't say. Was he drafted ever? Even by like
I don't know.
Family League?
I don't know. I doubt it.
So it feels like a good position. It's not a liability. I'll put it that way. So that's all the Titans talk we got, except unless you want to talk about a former Titan. This was like the softball pitch right across the plate. Earlier this week, it was reported that Chris Johnson was only doing individual drills for the Jets, and every Titans fan's like, yeah, well, he's not a team drill guy. He's an individual guy. And I think he made some comments about how the Titans did him dirty or something, and I was like, you know what?
He did.
You can say whatever you can say, but they paid him pretty good money. Okay, they took a while to release him so he wouldn't get signed by another team, but he wasn't going to get a big contract from another team. I'm actually surprised he got what he got.
I'm surprised he got the contract that he got, too.
Because running backs were getting about $3 million a year at most, and I was like, that's what he's going to get. And the Jets, I think, paid him a little bit more.
He did all right. CJ did all right. Monetarily. And, yeah, we don't know exactly what kind of conversations were going on. I legitimately think the Titans thought that he might get reasonable and come down. Right? I think they thought that he might see that the market wasn't there for him. He might get reasonable, and they might be able to work something out. Chris Johnson isn't a very reasonable thinker.
No, he's got a little bit of that small guy thing going for him, where he, definitely feels like he's got I don't know. He still thinks he's a 2,000-yard running back. So, this is a very limited crowd. Not very many people run for 2,000 yards, but he's the worst of the bunch. And I would say someday Terrell Davis, despite a 6-year career, probably will end up in the Hall of Fame, which means every 2,000-yard rusher will get in there. And I don't think Chris Johnson's going to make it unless he makes an amazing turnaround this year with the Jets.
Yeah, I think that he's got to put up some numbers that I don't see him doing.
Because he's been kind of tailing off since that year. It's tough. 2,000 yards is not easy. You know,
it's hard.
There's a reason why
hard
nobody's done it twice. It's
right.
You have to get a ton of carries, and you have to be the right circumstances.
Yeah.
Anyway, do you have anything to say about, Twitter was blowing up today about the Washington losing their trademark for the team name? What do you think?
Yeah. I think that it's the beginning of the end. They have lost the exclusivity, their patent, their trademark. I mean, it frees up. I mean, sure, they've still got the informal thing. I know somebody was tweeting out about that, but are they gonna? If they want to litigate all the time, sure, hey, fine, go right ahead. Good money for the lawyers.
Nothing wrong with that, right?
I'm not gonna knock the hustle.
Yeah, Dan Snyder basically took a semi-worthless company and sold it high, and then bought a NFL franchise that is one of the most valuable franchises in the league. But apparently he can't afford a groundskeeper, like we saw in that playoff game with RG3 a couple years ago. And he's kind of dug his heels in. But as we've seen in this crazy, wacky world we live in, things change. They change quick. And I think maybe a couple months ago there might have been a case to make. But at this point, it's like, if you change your team name, you can sell a lot of merchandise, and you can probably keep your team colors.
Well, I think that the other owners too.
Calling them the potatoes.
I'm like spitting everywhere. I think the other owners too are going to be like.
Spitting mad.
I am, right? I don't know. I'm like. I think the other owners too are going to be like, hey, yo, we're losing all this licensing income. They're not going to participate in the litigation. I can assure you that the Redskins would be facing to try to enforce these informal, rather, and those are sort of hard. I'm not a patent person, but from what I understand, it's going to be very difficult for them to control that, and they can certainly dig their heels in. But the other part of this is that the argument that they made that it wasn't offensive has gone away. There's no, you don't have a prayer there. And then the third thing is that the NFL is in bed with the National Football League, or with the U.S. government, and an arm of the U.S. government has now ruled that the name is offensive and disparaging to Native Americans. It behooves the NFL to make this go away.
Yeah, and they do have all that tax exemptions going on right now. So, yeah, it's funny how people talk sometimes about being anti kind of socialism, and it's like NFL is kind of socialist. Every team gets the same amount of money. That's the thing they said about the team making the money. The merchandising. It's all one big. It's one big. Yeah, not for profit. Yeah, just like the FIFA and the World Cup. Okay. Yeah, I'll believe that for a second. Cash money. Sorry, I made a soccer comment. We'll try not to let that happen
me
again.
the quan.
Yeah, let's do the, what was it? The
Money Manziel. Where's my cash phone?
I do have to make my really quick quarterback comment of the week. Everybody was, like, before Peyton won a playoff game last year for Denver, everybody was going, Tebow won a playoff game and Peyton didn't. Well, guess who else won a playoff game who's not on an NFL roster right now? T.J. Yates was cut.
Oh, yes.
By the Texans. And probably went up with the Ravens because that's where their offensive coordinator is, or coach. So we'll see. But, yeah, he won a playoff game against the Bengals because the Bengals can't beat anybody in the playoffs. They can beat the Titans in the regular season, but not in the playoffs. Anyway, enough with NFL nonsense, unless you have something else to say.
Oh, I was just going to say I am still and I was very I defended Ryan Fitzpatrick as much as I possibly could last year. And I wish Ryan Fitzpatrick all the best, except when they're playing games that matter to the Titans, and all of that. But I'm Team Case. I'm pulling for Case Keenum.
That was
And let us not forget their star wide receiver is still not in camp.
right. Poor Andre Johnson. I mean, he's this giant guy, and for some reason they never throw the ball to him in the red zone.
I love him. I love.
I don't
Johnson.
understand. It confuses me. Yeah, they have Tom Savage, the guy that two scouts decided they liked, and I don't know, that was a weird one.
That was a bizarre pick.
Definitely the Texans. Well, he was being talked up as like a second-round pick, so I guess getting him in the fourth wasn't bad, but definitely the Texans' long-term starter is probably not in the roster.
Yeah.
Although Case Keenum, because he was like this legendary guy at University of Houston, he had like 20,000 passing yards or something.
Oh, yeah, he was
I was at the finale, the Texans and Titans, and talk about a JV football game. There was a woman getting stuff, and she had a Case Keenum like T-shirt, and I'm like, he only became a starter like in week 10 of the year, and they already have T-shirts for him. Well, he must be their great white hope. I mean, I don't know.
He's very popular
behind him, although
he's very popular.
Seem to be a functional quarterback, but you know,
he's very popular.
He's their Rusty Smith, right?
Rusty. Yeah, he's very popular in certain circles down in Texas.
And now we move on.
And now we come to the meat of the program.
To the fantasy football portion of the evening. I hear you're involved in this dynasty league. I want you to talk to me about this dynasty strategy of yours.
Oh, God, I don't know that I have
Are you trying to be an immediate contender, or are you playing the long game? And judging by your selection of Tom Brady, I'm thinking the former.
Tom
Brady. She's so pretty. Sorry.
I'm the biggest Tom Brady hater ever, so it's kind of funny that I drafted Tom. And I'm being a little facetious because I did have some hard feelings toward Tom Brady after all the dirty Titans stuff that he kept saying after that one game we've already talked about. I have decided to forgive Tom Brady.
He's an epic whiner. That is true.
He's gotten a lot better. I will give him that. He's gotten a lot better. Just say, "Oh, good job, girl."
Maybe not as a quarterback, but as a person.
Changed him. Anyway, I think that he has 3 more years. That I did not see my quarterback of the future in coming up. By the time I decided to take a quarterback, I was like, I'm going to take Tom Brady and hope for the best. I might snag a backup guy, but I'm kind of in team building mode. I picked some guys that I think are going to get me through. They're going to be I picked Aaron Dobson, who is I think going to be one of Brady's targets this year, and I'm hoping that he will develop. Some other, I took a late flyer on Marcus Lattimore, and I'm hearing good things about him. I already had my running back set, so I could do that. Off the top, and I took Delaney. Delaney's going to be the guy for 3 more years. Shut up. I am Team Delaney. At least for 2 more, and I liked where I got him. I liked that spot. And I love Martellus Bennett too. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, Black Unicorn. Oh, that's great. Oh, he's awesome.
Hold on just a second. I came this close, so close to drafting Martellus, but I did not want to be in the position where I was cheering for Jay Cutler.
Well, who'd you take instead?
Delaney.
Oh, right. Yeah, tight ends, well, I don't know. I mean, Dynasty in general, you think that, like, Peyton's on the verge of retiring, Drew Brees is on the verge of retiring, Tom Brady's on the verge of retiring, but the way the rules are, you can barely touch a quarterback and not get penalized. Yeah. The Titans got a 15-yard penalty once on Tom Brady for touching his foot.
I know.
That's how it goes. So even though he is getting up there, it's like, so what? It's like a sure thing. Even though he was kind of mediocre last year, but he's been
I
good
think
the
he's
rest
going
of
to
his
bounce
career.
back. I think he's
Plus, they
going to
didn't
bounce
have
back.
Rob Gronkowski most of the year. He had a bunch of
Yeah,
like
I mean, he was
scrub
so. I mean,
rookies and Danny M and
Shane
Dola. I get
Vereen
injured
got
every other
hurt.
play.
I mean, it was kind of yeah. I think he'll be. I think I'm going to be fine.
We hope so. You know, the last time I did an initial dynasty draft, I took Deshaun Foster and Ashley Lele. That's how long ago that was.
And I should say
2006.
this. I should mention this. I traded out of some early picks and picked up. Yeah, I've traded out several times. I've got like two first rounders next year, 3 second rounders, and some other stuff. So I'm very much in building mode.
Plus, it's all about kind of knowing your league and your rules, and you're in a 16-team league, which
It's crazy.
changes everything. I remember looking at the rosters, and there were a couple teams that only had like backup running backs because, I mean, the pool is just kind of really shallow. Like I keep saying in like kind of redrafts, like, oh, just wait on quarterback. But if you have 16 teams,
Yeah, you better.
It's hard to say with any position, you know. But I think it's is it fantasy pigskin? Is that the league?
Yeah, fake pigskin.
Pigskin. Yes. I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah.
Reagan, whatever his name is.
And I will say this, and I'm going to, speaking of trademarks, I'm going to trademark this because Zach, instead of encouraging me to take Jake Locker, Zach said, draft Latavius Murray. So I drafted him and said, blame it on the Zacahol. And I'm trademarking Zacahol.
Zacahol. Yeah, that's a good one. I think
blame it on the Zacahol.
That's right.
Blame it on the Zacahol.
I'm only in 2 leagues right now.
See, I can sing too.
Yes, you can do whatever you want to.
Multi-talented.
You got the skills. So 2 leagues, Dynasty and a Keeper. And our Keeper League is doing a redraft this year. So it's a big deal because we only do this once every 4 years. But one thing is as important as knowing your league rules is knowing your league mates. Like, what are they going to do? After you have some data, you're like, okay, who's a homer? Who drafts all Patriots? Who's going to be the guy? I can
tell you who the homer is in my league.
Is that you?
Hi, Ty.
Oh, Ty, yeah, right. He rocks, though.
I love Ty.
Ty and his wife, they do a date night on Twitter. It's great. It's good stuff.
They are the best couple. I love them.
When it comes to your league mates, it's like, who takes the first kicker in defense? Who takes Janikowski because he has the same blood alcohol content as he does on draft day? You know? Who in your league likes to trade like we're to swap meat, and who wouldn't trade a half-eaten chicken wing for a 2-pound steak? You got to know these things. Because in my local league, trading kind of doesn't really happen, so you have to know. So this year, Sharona, if you have a choice of what pick you want to get in like a 12-team league, do you have a preference? Do you want to go first? Do you want to go last? Do you want to be in the middle?
I changed my mind on this so much. I have almost decided that it's better to go later and have those close to back-to-back picks than it is to go earlier. Although if you have the number 1 pick, you're assured of getting the guy that you want.
Yeah, I kind of want. I think the last time we did our keeper, we actually just drew cards for the picks, and whatever card you got was whatever pick you're going to get. But this year, you're actually going to get to. If you get the first pick, then you can choose whatever pick you want. Oh. And I kind of want to get the number 1 pick so I can like trade down. Because those guys at the end are great. I tried to do like one mock draft, especially during a soccer game. There's a lot of downtime, plenty of time to do a mock draft. And I drafted from the 12 slot and ended up getting, I think it was Demaryius Thomas and Des Bryant at the turn. I mean, that's that feels good. I feel like I'm either going to be, there's a theory of like a 0 running back where you grab other positions or 0 wide receiver. And it's like one or the other. Just blast
Yeah.
one position and be great at it, and then try to pick up guys late.
It's funny. I read that article, and we had this talk about whether you take running backs, do you wait? Maybe it's just such a hard habit to break. I tend to stock up on running backs because I think that they're rarer and harder to. The guys that are going to get the bulk of the carries, I've tended. Now I did. I didn't mind, by the way, taking the flyer on Latavius Murray. Simply because
Even though he's a Raider, I don't understand.
that was the only thing. I mean, I've got to hope that Matt Schaub does well. But anyway.
Get the under on that.
Yeah. So anyway.
The other Carr though, they have Carr. Oh no,
Yes, they
I
do.
saw you drafted Toby Gerhart. You took a Jaguar. You're gonna be so happy when he runs over the Titans 2 games.
I love him. I think that I love his upside. He's going to be great. I took Rashad Jennings. He's going to be fantastic in New York. I don't care what people are saying about Dave. I'm going to keep it clean. I'm going to keep it clean. I'm not going to say what I might say. But David Wilson, you are dead to me.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I took him in some mock draft.
I took him twice last year. I had him in 2 different leagues.
Well,
he killed
last
me.
year, didn't he have like an 80-yard touchdown in preseason, and that just put his value through the roof.
Went. Yeah.
And then he got hurt. I mean,
well,
fumble.
He kept fumbling, and then he got hurt.
It was just a mess. I mean, they were starting like Peyton Hillis one week. I think they brought back the corpse of Brandon Jacobs. I mean, It was just bad. But yeah, that it seems like Rashad Jennings should be okay. I was just annoyed at him. You take it personally with fantasy guys because I drafted him the year MGD was kind of holding out for the Jaguars, and he got hurt. And the following year, last year, he was a good player with the Raiders.
Oh, I'm coming close. I'm getting ready to pick again. I don't mind telling you guys. I'll tell you guys who I have. I took Jock Bell, Toby Gerhart, Joey, whatever. I'm terrible. Oh, Eddie Lacy. I've got Eddie Lacy. And then my wide receiver.
Alabama. Wait, you see a guy?
And then my wide. And then my wide receiver.
What?
My wide receivers are Kelvin Benjamin. I took. He was not the first one that I took. But he's going to get. I mean, he's going to be the guy. Anquan Bolden, Aaron Dobson. I've already mentioned, and Cordarrelle Patterson.
All right, Cordy. Bring it on, UT.
Bring it on. So
with Cordarrelle Patterson, Justin Hunter, and
you heard it.
Tyler Bray. Oh, sorry. Too soon.
I got it all over my screen. You heard it here first. Cordarrelle Patterson is going to have a breakout year.
Well, I hope you get kick return yardage, because if you do, you're in. You're set.
He's going to be great in the offense.
Set it and forget it. And let's talk about one more draft before we go. I got to participate in the Two Mugs beer draft. This is the 4th annual beer draft. And I have been in for the last 3 years. I had the #1 overall pick. And when you have every beer in the world to choose from, except I said before the draft, I will not pick any beers I had taken previously. I like to have some integrity. So I actually took a beer that I had in my Portland trip last year, the Big Butte 25th anniversary beer from Deschutes. It was just strong porter that was just delicious. And I drank a giant bottle of it before going out one night. So I might not have been so functional, but it was very tasty.
You are the beer god.
Any of my Northwest connections,
I bow to your knowledge.
Hook me up with a bottle of that because that was quite good. I took a local beer, the Three Taverns Quasimodo, because you have a choice when it comes to Belgian beers. You can have your single, you can have your double, you can have your triple, and then quad. Well, quad's the biggest number, and it's quite good. Basically, a local brewery in Decatur down the road from me, they brought in a Belgian brewmaster, and they've been really cranking it up. They've really stepped it up here in Georgia with the beer lately. And in my final pick, I took the Bison Brew Organic Chocolate Stout because I've been drinking a lot of chocolate stout lately. And
You
it's like
have been.
dessert and beer in one. It's a glorious thing. Although people made fun of me for getting an organic beer because if my manhood wasn't tested enough by having a
You're a
strawberry
hipster.
beer, it was I don't have the beard anymore. I can't be. I'm an unhipster. And definitely, that's me. Unhipster. Whoop.
You've got the hipster hair going. You got the dimples.
Is that hipster? That's just me.
I'm just teasing. I don't know about the dimples, but they are cute.
So how many rounds does this draft have?
Oh Lord, like 50? No, I'm kidding. Hang on, 20, I believe.
And is there some kind of penalty for
20.
the first person to take a defense and/or a kicker?
I think it's just mostly.
Because I know you're one of them team defense leagues. Which, you know, okay.
Yes, no IDP players. It is defense.
Well, my gosh, look where the time has gone.
Look where the
Sharona,
time.
tell them what you got going on. What's happening in the world of Sharona?
In the world of Sharona, there is, as always, the radio show, the morning radio show on Yahoo 7:30 Yahoo Sports. Game over with Vashti and Sharona, and the Friday night show, The Extra Point, from National Gridiron Network, and pretty soon I will be returning to NFL Female for the Tuesday night Google Hangout webcast called The Zone Blitz. I think I've covered everything. And as Zach mentioned, be sure to check out my article about Steve McNair. Tough case to be made, but he will always be a Hall of Famer in our books. Did you catch that reference, Zach?
Which one?
The Hall of Famer comment?
Well, he is in the man cave, so I feel like that's a Hall of Fame of some sort.
It's from Remember the Titans.
Oh, yeah.
The movie.
You know, never seen the movie all the way through?
I'm so disappointed.
It's got some, good actors in it all, but I think they ran like an option play and tried to go 70 yards, and they got it because it's realistic. But yeah, it's football. Football on TV and movies, they're going to do goofy stuff. That's all I got to say.
You need to watch it. It's a good movie.
I'll try. Now, I have a new interview coming up with Jonathan van der Sluis, who, by that name, is very excited about how the Netherlands are doing in the World Cup. He's from the site Top Team Fantasy. He's a rocket scientist from Toronto, and I assume that Canadian rocket scientists are only working on making their beer more explosive. And I did post a blog post. This is not a blog, it's a blog post, comparing the movie Highlander to Mike Evans. I decided to expand on my whole concept of dynasty football immortality, making those rookie picks last forever. Except they aren't really immortal in that movie because you chop their heads off, they die. But anyway, hey, they had to come up with something. It was the 80s.
It's very clever.
Christopher Lambert had not much going on with him. But anyway, thanks for joining us, Zach_Law on the Twitters, and trust me, we'll be talking a lot because the NFL season just a couple months away.
Right around the corner.
Exactly. So thanks everybody, and good night, good luck,
Peace
and
out.
2, is that good? Up, down, sideways. How's it go? No. I did 2 fingers just like Bud Adams, but no, I won't do that on a podcast.
No, let's not.